Have you ever wanted to be better at public speaking? Maybe you would like to be more confident, present well in front of clients, or maybe you just want to be able to deliver a great speech anywhere, anytime without notes. So here are 4 effective public speaking tips you can use pretty much right away. The very first one is phrasing. I mean, when you think about it, 93% of all communication is non-verbal. While amateurs are out there focusing on what to say, it's the professionals that are focusing on actually how to say it. And a large part of this is something that we refer to as phrasing, where you put different inflections and different tonal patterns on specific words to reinforce the point you're attempting to make. For instance, if I was to say the sentence, "I didn't say he stole the money," just phrasing one word differently can actually change the entire meaning of the sentence. So say the sentence in your head or out loud, emphasizing just the first word. I didn't say he stole the money. Now, what does that mean? It means that I didn't say it. I mean, it means he stole the money, but I just didn't say it. Now, try emphasizing the third word to see if it makes a difference. I didn't say he stole the money. Well, what does that mean? It means that he still stole the money, but I didn't say it. Maybe I wrote it, maybe I emailed it or something, or maybe I mimed it. Now, if you keep doing this with each of the words, you will soon see that it changes the entire meaning of the sentence. This is important because people feel your intention when you speak way more than they actually listen to the words you're using. So a good exercise is to practice this out loud or even record yourself and say the sentence multiple ways until you can clearly hear the difference between the phrasing of the different words. And just this alone will start to transform your public speaking skills. Now, public speaking tip number 2 is to tell stories. Now, amateurs share facts while professionals tell stories. Now, let's face it, every civilization since the dawn of time has passed down information using stories. Now, why do they do this? Well, it's pretty simple. It's because it actually works. The great thing about stories is they're visual, they're emotional, and they're much more powerful than just facts and figures alone. There is something special that happens when you begin telling a story. And it's kind of like people go into a trance-like state or something, and they start to enjoy themselves, and they are certainly way more focused on what you have to say. In fact, you have their full attention when you begin telling a story. Now, if you've ever told a story to a young child before, you'll know that as soon as you finish the story, the kid says, tell it again, say it again, I want to hear the story again. And let's face it, your audience is just a bunch of little kids dressed up in adult bodies. Unless, of course, you're speaking to schools, well then, of course, they are just a bunch of kids. But I really want you to think about that for a second. And I want you to contemplate, what is a personal story that you have, or a client's story, or someone else's story that relates to your topic? See, the great thing is that a story is actually easier to remember than a bunch of abstract logical points. The trick, though, is instead of actually trying to remember a story, what the best speakers out there actually do is they relive them. So they're actually inside the story, imagining that it's happening either to you right now or that you're witnessing it right now. And then basically all you got to do is describe what's actually going on. Now, when you relive a story as opposed to remember it, something quite magical happens in the room. And what actually happens is time stands still. Now, I know you've had a story told you before, and when that story was told, literally everything just stopped. And here's the cool thing. When you actually relive a story, your audience will actually feel like it's happening to them right now as well. So learn to tell stories because it warps time and it draws everybody into what you're saying. Now, public speaking tip number 3 is about turning fear into excitement. Now, when I run public speaking workshops, many of our students start off with a little bit of nervousness or they're a little bit scared, and that's perfectly normal. The fact is, when you're about to deliver a talk, you are going to create 2 different feelings inside the body. The feeling of confusion, because you're probably doing it for the first time, and the feeling of excitement because you're doing it for the first time. But did you know that the feeling of nervousness and the feeling of excitement are actually quite similar? I mean, both are tingling feelings of expansiveness in your chest, and it's just a 1 millimeter shift in our thinking that turns that fear into excitement. So instead of telling yourself, I'm nervous or I'm scared, why not try saying, I'm excited or I feel alive about this talk? And once you do this, the first few times, you'll actually see just how effective it can be. What I've learned to do over the years is when I get that feeling in my body of what other people might label as anxiety, I call that expansion. And I like to expand on a regular basis. So when I get that feeling of expansion, I know that I'm alive and I'm doing things. Now, the other thing is, if you think about it, if two people are about to jump on a roller coaster and one of those people is scared of the roller coaster and the other one is excited, what is the core difference between those two people? Well, the core difference is simply what they're telling themselves. And at the end of the day, if you still fear the fear, just remember that fear stands for face everything and rise. Now, public speaking tip number 4. It may not be what you want to hear, but it is most important. And that is to practice. Practice, 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 practice. Look, if you don't practice enough, it's going to show. That's just the facts of how it works. You need to practice. And it's just like playing a sport. You know, public speaking is a doing thing. It's not a thinking thing. Champions are not made on the field. They're made in training. That's it. They're made in training and they're made with a lot of practice. And here's the thing. The difference between an amateur and a professional speaker is that amateurs practice until they get it right and professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. So my advice is practice until you can't get it wrong. Now, the trick to this is to enjoy the practice. Make it fun, make it playful, make it light. See, if you enjoy the practice, the fact is you're going to practice more often. And hey, the more often you practice, then the more successful you are bound to become. Now, I know some of these tips may sound a little bit counterintuitive, or perhaps they're not what you're expecting. But having trained thousands of presenters since right back in 2009, and having delivered hundreds of presentations myself and hundreds of courses myself, I know that they can work wonders for you as well. Now, if you enjoyed this video, my advice is please share it with your friends or make some comments down below. But most importantly, put all of this stuff into action. So until we meet again, share your light, live your love, and do whatever it takes to be your own best friend. Ciao for now.